Ma'am, we are elated to be with you and are super excited to witness this most awaited event, that is Rubaru with Mrs. Pratima Gupta, the Assistant Director of Sunbeam Group. So without further ado, let me pass this honors of interviewing ma'am to Sudiksha and Aishwarya of class 12H, who are eagerly waiting to interact with ma'am. Over to you, dear students.
Thank you, sir. Today, me and Aishwarya are going to interview our very own Pratima ma'am, the Assistant Director of Sunbeam Group of Educational Institutions. She is a person with her own charms and a very inspiring aura. Wherever she goes, she leaves her mark to be remembered. And it is our utmost honor that ma'am has spared us some precious time from her hectic schedule. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us today. But before formally starting the interview, we would like to give a brief introduction to our audience about Pratima ma'am.
Pratima ma'am holds postgraduate degree in social work, and she has also completed her MPhil in psychiatric social work from NIMHANS, Bangalore. She was the gold medalist from her batch. Before joining Sunbeam, she had worked as an executive administrator of National Institute of Fashion Design, Indore. She also worked as a child guidance counselor at Greenfield Kindergarten School, Rath Yatra. And I believe that these experiences have surely added to her charisma.
Pratima ma'am recently received the award of Iconic Women Empowering All by Women Economic Forum at Egypt in March 2020. She has conducted various workshops and seminars on leadership, pedagogy, and child development. We welcome you again, ma'am. So, with your permission, shall we begin the interview, ma'am?
Yes, please. I'm ready to be grilled.
All right, ma'am. Ma'am, this pandemic sure has created a pandemonium in our lives. With the extent of the experience you have in the education world, what reforms do you expect in the education system in the next 10 years with respect to the current situation?
Very honestly, I have maintained over the past 2 years that the pandemic is a much needed jolt, albeit a negative jolt to all of us, but it has made us sit up and take cognizance of events and forces which have been swirling around us for ages. Particularly with reference to the education system, there has long been a need to come out of the traditional methods and practices of not just academic delivery, but also, more importantly, of evaluation. And whatever reservations we had about it, I'm sure a lot of us in the education sector who consider ourselves forward thinking and who consider ourselves projectionists, we have been mulling upon it, we have been trying it. But the kind of unanimous participation the pandemic has evoked in terms of the teachers upgrading themselves to the tech skills, in terms of people understanding that education is actually a self-directed process wherein the child has to be stimulated to embark upon a journey of discovery, and you have to just be a stimulator, you just have to be a person at the back who is nudging him or her in the right direction instead of spoon feeding everything. Likewise, when it comes to the all important issue of evaluation of the learned knowledge, it has not got to be a spot test on any particular day where the child regurgitates whatever has been taught, but rather evaluation has to be based upon something which is very continuous, which has to be done in terms of presentations, in terms of interfaces, in terms of project submissions done by the child. So I feel in the next 10 years, whatever have been our sufferings and whatever have been our lacunae that we as educators and we as learners in the pandemic have felt, that will propel and guide us towards a more progressive and I would say feel a more contextually relevant change in the domain of education. So I am positive that it was a very negative way of coming to terms with the gaps in our own practices, but I welcome it nonetheless. And it is paving the way forward to a very exciting time in the education sector.
Indeed, ma'am. Thank you so much.
As an administrator, what challenges did you face, especially in the past 2 years, and how did you overcome them?
I don't know. I don't want to sound smug at all. I do not want to sound smug at all, and I do not want to, by any means, dilute the tremendous effort put in by everyone. But honestly, I am talking more in terms of being a practitioner in the Sunbeam group as such. And we have such a phenomenal team. We have such a phenomenal team of teachers, of colleagues, that challenges of administration were not there. Honestly, challenges of administration were there only in the first week leading to that abrupt, sudden lockdown. That was the only time when we felt a tad rattled. But I would say, speaking of Bhagwanpur and speaking of the Sunbeam group in general, I would say that it took us barely 10 to 12 days, to get the hang of this new change and to come to terms with it. Administratively, there were issues, I would say, about the human angle of the entire challenge. As in, do my teachers have enough data with them? Do my teachers have enough space in their houses? Because homes are not always equipped to carry on a noise free, continuous, uninterrupted Zoom class. And then teachers who are needing boards to illustrate certain points or topics, for them to probably get the hang of the edtech tools, that was the time. I would not call it an administrative challenge. Likewise, my heart went out to the parents and the students who were struggling with their own very domestic, very particular, typical local issues of getting on to the Zoom classes, of managing devices in the house. At times there were elderly who were ill in the house. At times there were issues otherwise in the house, where things could not be managed. There was a huge financial crunch faced by a lot of families, and where the earnings completely choked off. And in such trying circumstances, for people to actually make themselves available for both teaching and learning, I mean, hats off. So as an administrator, no, you have a team, you have resources, you put things in place and you move ahead. But the human angle of the problem really had me thinking, and I was, constantly trying to reach out to people and to preserve some kind semblance of normalcy when everything around us was anything but normal. That was a greater challenge.
Coming from a defense background, how far has it influenced you to shape the person you are today?
Absolutely, totally, completely. I'm a product of my childhood influences, and there are certain things which become a part of your DNA, and you cannot try as you want, you cannot break away from it. So I am a person who likes to be working within a structured framework of decency and courtesy, which I hate it if someone compromises it. For example, regard to someone else's time. There are a lot of times when I feel that people do not respect the kind of schedules that are given to them. People will show up late for meetings, and I don't mean at school. I mean otherwise also in civil life. So people will not keep up their appointments at the set time. Even today, somebody took an appointment for me at 10 o'clock 2 days back, and I told them that 10:30 I have to start, and the person shows up at 10:15, 10:17, and all the time I was on the edge that, look, I prefer, if you've given me a time of 10:30, I would rather reach there at 10:25. So for me, appropriateness of etiquette, courtesies, adhering to time schedules, understanding that other people's time is important, thanking them, observing decencies of people behavior, these things matter. Likewise, adhering to authority also matters. Insubordination in any form at times without a logical explanation irks me. If I can fathom the cause for it, wonderfully well. But if it's a lackadaisical attitude which creates the problem, then I have a tough time dealing with it internally. Outwardly, no, you are in a position, so of course you manage things. So the life that I grew up in has got tremendous bearing, and Banaras, I would say, with all its turbulence and chaos, has eroded a bit of it. It has made me a more patient and understanding person of other people's inability to adhere. You know that the Mast Banarsi was a big challenge to my psyche. And the attitude of the Mast Banarsi, the chalta hai, the ho jata hai attitude was a huge thing that I adjusted to. But yeah, I've come to terms with it. Salavi, this is life.
Yes, ma'am, indeed. The must Banarasi. Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, what has motivated you to pursue masters in social work and further MPhil in psychiatric social work?
Again, I would hark back to my upbringing because being in the defense services, I had the opportunity to meet diverse groups of people, you know. And as a child, there were multiple influences upon me in terms of understanding people, understanding the nuances of language, culture, traditions. Everything was a new, say, you know, atlas to fathom every time my father went to a different posting. And that made me intuitively sensitive to the differences in people behavior. So I did not understand that what comes very openness of attitude and a heartiness, which comes very easily to say the people in the Punjab, you know, who laugh loud, who throw their head back and laugh very loudly and give you a hearty whack on the back, and you know, and everything is like joy de verb, so to say, and everything is nice. The moment you go south, you get these proper solemn people to whom display of affection is like, oh my God, why do you do it? And as a child, I used to keep on thinking, what makes people tick? And why are people the way they are? You know, are they a product of their situation, or is the situation governed by their, you know, behavior? So I would constantly keep on mulling upon these things and trying to find answers to it. So what led me to psychology is an innate curiosity about the human mind and the aspects thereof. Social work was a forum in through which we could reach out to people. But later on, when I was doing my master's in social work, towards the final year, when I entered the final year, I had to choose a specialization. And the abnormal behavior of human beings at that point of time was another thought-provoking, you know, area, and that led me to my specialization in adolescent and geriatric psychiatry at NIMHANS. So yeah, it was a journey of unraveling the human mind and psyche, so to say.
That really looks so wonderful. Thank you.
So, ma'am, how much has your study in psychiatric social work helped you form your perspective towards different people, and how much did it help you in the administration as well?
Well, entirely, Sudiksha, because and sometimes it is detrimental. As an administration, too much of understanding is administrator. Too much of understanding is detrimental. You know, because when there are aberrations from what is the expected normative behavior, the psychiatrist in me, or you know, the social worker and me, goes and puts myself into the other person's shoes and typically understands the why of it and empathizes. But as an administrator, when you have to get the task done, the understanding and the empathy in a clinical setting is very different from the understanding and empathy in the administrative setting. So you can understand, you can empathize, but a structure has to be maintained, you know, say a framework of regulations has to be followed. In a clinical setting, you know, a person with any kind of aberration can walk into your, say, chamber, and you understand and you will empathize and you will say, okay, fine, so where do we go from here? But in an administrative setting, you understand, you empathize, and then you penalize, because that is also the rule and you have to follow the norm because the task has to be done, so on and so forth. So it has made me understand people better. It has helped me sort of draw out people better. It has also helped me to be patient in dealing with human frailties, of course, because all your best laid plans will come to naught if the attitude is not right, and then you have to work upon the attitude. You can orchestrate as many strategies around a thing as you want, but if the attitude is not right, if the will is not right, if the spirit is not willing, well, work will get done, but not get done in the way that you will make you sit up and say, wow, this is it. So obviously it has helped me deal with things better. And thank God I have a Bharti ma'am above me to pull me up and say, okay, enough, but there is work. I understand that you understand too well, but now let's get this done. So yeah, I've had to rein in my empathy and the overflow thereof at times and get focused. That's it.
Ma'am, looking at you, I also feel that I can also go for this psychiatric social work. I'm very much interested in psychology. Thank you so much, ma'am.
It's an extremely enriching subject, and,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I still, I don't know, if you come to my office, you will still see me keeping my psychiatry Bible besides my table, and there are times when I feel going back and reading it. It is very, very important. I keep the comprehensive textbook of psychiatry beside me on my table, and there are so many times but I just want to check out things and I go back to it.
You were awarded with Iconic Woman Empowering All by the Women Economic Forum at Egypt in March 2020. And you also had the chance to interact with the world women leaders over there. So what were your takeaways from that experience?
First of all, it was a women economic league in Egypt. So Egypt itself is my God, it's such an exotic adventure. It is a treat to the senses. And the moment you set foot in that land and you sort of, the cumulative, the cumulative weight of history assails your senses, and I have read also a lot of books on the land. So yeah, so to go there and then to interact, with 1,500 women delegates from all over the world, literally all over the world. The energy in that forum was unbelievable. And the kind of women I met, the work that is being done, also to come face to face and see that, understand that major ministries in Egypt are being headed by women. The kind of progress that country has made towards giving power to women, towards putting them in high profile administrative jobs. So the Minister for Health and Welfare, the Minister for public development and infrastructural development, so on and so forth, so many of them, they would come and they would address us. What I realized that we share a kinship bond, women all over the world, whether they belong to a developed, a developing, or an underdeveloped country, there is a bond which resonates across the levels of finance, across the level of education. It's a bond of sensitivity. It's a soul connect, and you get gooseflesh when someone goes up on the forum and says sisters of the world. You get gooseflesh. We are 1,500 women in different attires sitting there. We come with we bring the to the table, we bring the history, the culture, the belief systems, the value systems of each different country, but that one word of sisters connects you across time passages. And you look at the person sitting next to you and her story is no different from yours. There is the same struggle, there is the same strife, there is the same ambition, and there is the same fierce unyielding hope that we will get our equal place in the sun someday. And we have to go on, and together we have the power to build a better world. So I understood, whether you are doctors, there were people who narrated stories as being subjugated as women, children, but went on to become doctors and practice medicine now. I heard so many stories. I shared so many unbelievable, incredible soul connects there that I would say it was a transformational experience. And the might of women power hit me singularly in my face then that day. So, men of the world, beware. There is a change which is happening of the positive kind. And there was none of this me, poor woman kind of talk being talked. We were individuals who were progress oriented. That we were in a female body happened to be an anatomical detail. It had nothing to do with us carrying a flag and saying, "Ra, ra, woman power is here to stay." We were women of the world, we're individuals of the 21st century. And it was a tremendous experience. And I would suggest, as and when the chance comes, people like you should go and become part of such international forums. It changes your outlook towards your scenario and towards the world scenario at large.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was very encouraging.
On a lighter note, you sure are a bibliophile and you have read many fiction and biographies. If given a chance to relive the life of any one of those real characters, who would that be and why?
Oh, Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind. I don't know if you have read it. What a woman, and what tremendous power of resilience. I mean, to rise above adversity and that flame of defying absolutely anything and everything and rising. So Scarlett O'Hara, of course, and she is mercurial, she is ambitious, she is realistic, objective, everything. So yes, Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind, and Dagny Taggart from Atlas Shrugged.
Now it's time for the rapid fire round. So the first question is, what is your most used emoji?
Most used emoji is, of course, that smiley with the two hearts for the eyes, because I smile from the heart.
Okay. So the next question is, one person you want to go out for dinner with if given a chance.
Shashi Tharoor, without a doubt, please. I think the whole wide world knows. Why isn't someone working towards it?
So one passion that you couldn't pursue yet.
One passion.
Yes,
One
ma'am.
passion that I couldn't pursue yet is to go to a place like Dharamshala and work in an NGO for education of the underprivileged women. I have recently come to know of NGOs that are doing that. Came to know of it about one such NGO in Nepal also, and now it's a burning ambition to go and do that.
Okay. So 3 things that make you feel proud about yourself.
I was brought up never to feel proud of myself, because my mother always told me to take things in my stride and not to get a swollen head. But 3 things that made me feel proud of myself is, I think the first and the foremost is when I see my kids doing that. So I feel that somewhere, someday, sometime, I must have done something good, you know. And when I say my kids, I mean Sunbeams, please. You know, they are more my kids than my own kids. My own kids are like, they're there, they have to be taken care of. So the only pride I feel is when you guys go out there and you know, set benchmarks of excellence. So that's my only pride. Apart from that, I don't know. I water it down. I don't think I have pride in anything else as such. My Sunbeam's doing well. Kids from Bhagwanpur, kids from Sun City, Indranagar, any Sunbeam doing well. I'm on the top of the world and I'm hajar proud of them all the time.
Thank you, ma'am. Now over to Sudiksha.
Continuing with the rapid fire round, your next question is
Yes.
your favorite self-care activity.
My favorite self-care activity would be to put tons of oil in my hair and read a book. I think I heal, I rejuvenate, and I completely become a new person after these 2 indulgences.
All right, ma'am. The next question is two things that are in your bucket list.
Sorry,
Two things that are in your bucket list.
a trip to Greece. And I'm going to be doing that very, very soon. That is in my bucket list. And owning a house on the hill, which has got huge glass windows, and I can sit and watch the rain on the mountains and read a book with a cup of coffee. This I want
That
to
is
do.
so dreamy for me.
And Sudiksha, you're welcome for the cup of coffee and to read as well beside me.
Sure, ma'am, I'll be happy to come. Okay, ma'am. So the next question is, would you rather plan or wing a travel?
I missed that. Come again.
Would you rather plan or wing a travel?
Would I rather plan or
Wing a travel.
Win, ma'am. W-I-N. Win or tap travel. We do rather plan or win. W-I-N, ma'am.
would you rather plan?
Or win. W-I-N.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm not much of a planner, you know. I seriously am not into planning so much, and I'm an intuitive person. So yeah. And the best laid plans often do not actually work out. Ask Team Bhagwan. We plan and sometimes it doesn't happen. Put us in the line of fire, we win. So that's how I am.
All right, ma'am. Your last question of the rapid fire round is, next place in your travelogue other than Greece?
Next place in my travelogue other than Greece,
Yes, ma'am.
Istanbul.
Thank you for the rapid fire round. Over to Aishwarya.
So before concluding the event, we all would love to listen to advice that you have for all of us in this ongoing situation.
Well, very honestly, I feel that this generation is a tremendously empowered generation by virtue of the situations and the trials and tribulations they have to face. Also, I completely believe in the power of this generation to do away with a lot of unnecessary baggage that our generations and the generations before us carried. They're very objective, you know, they will do a thing, even if it is a simple thing like bending down and touching feet. They do it only when they have respect. They will not do it because, it is the done thing or so on and so forth. So authenticity is something which appeals to me where this generation is concerned. And my advice to all of you, for now and forever, pandemic or no pandemic, we can have bouts of any kind of adversities coming our way, any catastrophes which affect the globe and affect our country and whatever happening. Do not get carried away by the fake facades that are constantly being sold, marketed, projected to you as being the it necessities. Remain tethered to your own originality, remain authentic, shun everything that makes you a pretender. Do not get into anything which gives you conformity with a crowd or with, say, an elitist kind of a world simply because they are doing that and you also become known or conform or become a part of that clique by doing that. If it appeals to your sense and sensibilities and conscience, go right ahead and do it and do not care a hoot about what others are saying. If your conscience takes it as right, go ahead, pursue it. And don't worry about the consequences. If you are right, things will turn out right. But if your inner voice says that you are becoming someone else, that this is not you, that this is not what you were raised to be or meant to be, don't do it. However glamorous, however right, however socially appropriate of a context it may seem. So whatever situation we are in, remain true to yourself and don't sort of take up on any veneer simply to be accepted by the world or social society at large. It's not worth it. In the end, you're a tired person disillusioned with your own self. So within the pandemic also, stop trending on things just because the world is trending on them. Don't get carried away by too much of media inputs. Do not bother about what is your image and how do people perceive you. Does everyone give you 20,000 likes on all those crazy kind of out snaps that you put up here, there, and everywhere? Do not get carried away by the hashtag me at the department store, hashtag me in the mask, hashtag me without the mask today, finally, hashtag met my friends today. No way. Not necessary. Let the world see you as what you are. And believe me, where it matters, when it matters, you're accepted for what you are and not what is the painstakingly cultivated fake apparition and facade that you kind of put on when you meet the world at large. I would never ever want to meet a fake person, and I would never ever be able to respect a fake person. That's it. Take it or leave it. And then again, these are purely subjectively my own thoughts. No one has to listen and follow it just because I say so. If it appeals to your sense of right and wisdom, take it up. Otherwise, nice hearing you, Pratima ma'am.
These words are really enlightening, and thank you so much for the wonderful interaction. It has surely been a learning session for many of us, and we look forward to listen to you more often.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And what I would have wanted is that in case anyone has any questions, anyone has anything randomly to say, I would be welcoming it. If not now, you know where to find me, and we can always, drop in for a chat. I'm here in my office in case you feel like at any point of time during your school year and afterwards also. You're more than welcome, all of you, at any point of time, because I sincerely feel my time is more yours than mine. And if after you I get some time to myself, I get cranky if I don't, but I'll get along just fine. Take care and stay safe.
Ma'am, Praveen sir wanted to ask something.
yes.
Praveen sir, over to you.
More than that.
Jai Hind, ma'am.
Jai Hind, Praveen sir.
Ma'am, it is almost 19 years plus association with you since I joined the Sunbeam, and I have seen you in various roles. Sometimes as an Iron Lady, trying to establish some things. Sometimes working, sometimes presenting yourself as a counselor, and sometimes counseling people, sometimes advising, and sometimes even I will say lending a shoulder to some of the people. How do you adapt to all these roles, and what actually is that, what you can say, magic behind adapting all these roles?
Well, there is no conscious adaptation as such, means I'm a people's person, you know, and for me it is very important that when I meet someone, like I said, my interaction with them has to be authentic. It has to be honest. So if in that particular moment of time they are undergoing some kind of personal strife, and at that point of time if they need a counselor, I cannot become the assistant director and say, look, you cannot be sharing these things with me, and why are you telling me all this, and I don't care what is happening to you, just get the work done. I will be not authentic as a person. So it is just within me to be genuine and to be honest in all my interactions with people. And sometimes sometimes I have to say things which perhaps do not appeal to them at that point of time. When it comes to my students also, sometimes I have to go against what they expect of me. But then again, I cannot be untrue to my own set of values at that point of time. You know, what is wrong is wrong, and if it takes me to call out a wrong and perhaps then not be appreciated for it, so be it. So adapting is not difficult, but yes, I will very honestly say where it is a value conflict, Praveen sir, I have to counsel myself. There are sometimes some things which you do because you're a part of the system, you're a part of the world, and it's your duty. But it goes against the grain of your personal values. But then You have to do it. A soldier does not like killing, but then he is doing it to protect the nation, right? He cannot be squirmish about it, and he cannot be say, oh, I don't believe in taking life. Well, then not wear the uniform, and by all means don't take up the gun. So yes, what has to be done in the line of duty has to be done. And there are times when I have to counsel myself that people matter. And at this point of time, my work is about, my calling is about that. So yeah, you go ahead and you do it. It's not difficult. And I have such wonderful people to work with, no complaints. The journey has been absolute party thanks to what, 19 years. Another 19 years with all of you, and I'll still be smiling and coming happily to work.
Thank you, ma'am, for such an interesting interview. Your words will definitely echo in our ears for days to come. Ladies and gentlemen, and dear viewers, with this, we have come to an end of this Rubaru with our own Assistant Director, Pratima ma'am. Thank you again, ma'am, for interacting with us. I request Pratima ma'am to leave the meet first, followed by the admins and the teachers. Thank you again, ma'am.
Thank you so much, everyone. Stay safe. Take care.